Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Mr. Hall, and today we are going to talk about how characters change throughout a story. So our I can statement today is, I can analyze how characters change throughout a story. Today, we are going to read the story called Peter's Chair by Ezra Jack Keats. And what we're going to do is, we are going to look at how Peter changes throughout the story. Essentially, we're going to look at his perspective and how things change throughout his life. Today, as we read, I would like you to think about how Peter changes throughout the story. In order to think about how Peter changes throughout the story, there are a few things that we have to think about. We have to think about what happens at the beginning, middle, and at the end of the story. The beginning is how we start the story. How does the character or the narrator describe the character at the beginning? Then we have to think about the middle of the story. What does the narrator say that the character does or thinks in the middle? And then at the end of the story, oftentimes writers do very clever things and make the characters mature or change in some kind of way. In many cases, many of them sometimes learn a lesson. So as we read this story, Peter's Chair today, I want you to think about how does Peter change from the beginning, middle, and end of the story, and think about his perspective about the chair and everything else that he owns. Please join me as we read. Peter stretched as high as he could. There, his tall building was finished. This is the beginning of the story. Crash! Down it came. Shh! Called his mother. You'll have to play more quietly. Remember, we have a new baby in the house. That sounds like a change so far. Sounds like Peter was probably the only child in the house, and then all of a sudden, there's someone new entering the home. Peter looked into his sister Susie's room. His mother was fussing around the cradle. That's my cradle, he thought, and they painted it pink. Peter's feeling some kind of way right now. Can you guess what kind of feeling he's feeling? I would say that he's feeling kind of jealous or even concerned. Let's see if he continues to feel that way or if things change throughout the story. Hi, Peter, said his father. Would you like to help paint Sister's high chair? It's my high chair, whispered Peter. Oh, Peter feels some kind of entitlement, as if that belongs to him. Indeed, it once did. He saw his crib and muttered, My crib. It's painted pink too. Not far away stood his old chair. They didn't paint that yet, Peter shouted. Can you see in this picture? Peter is actually behind the crib and he sees the chair. What do you think he's going to do with the chair? He notices that his parents haven't painted it. Do you think that he might try to take the chair? That's what I'm thinking right now. I wonder what he's going to do. He picked it up and ran to his room. We were right. Peter definitely did pick up the chair and he took it. Let's run away, Willie, he said. Peter filled a shopping bag with cookies and dog biscuits. We'll take my blue chair, my toy crocodile, and a picture of me when I was a baby. Willie got his bone. So at this point in the story, we're kind of in the middle, and Peter feels as though he's going to run away. We know he's going to run away because he's packing all of his things. He even tells the dog to come on. He's going to take the dog too. They went outside and stood in front of his house. This is a good place, said Peter. He arranged his things very nicely and decided to sit in his chair for a while. So now he's outside the house. Did Peter really run? Did he really run away? Not really. He's right outside of his house. But he couldn't fit in the chair. He was too big. His mother came to the window and called, Won't you come back to us, Peter dear? We have something very special for lunch. Peter and Willie made believe they didn't hear. But Peter got an idea. It sounds like right now that Peter is ignoring his mom. and I wonder what his idea is. Remember, Peter didn't get too far from his house. I wonder if he's going to go back into his house. Let's find out. Soon, his mother saw signs that Peter was home. "That rascal is hiding behind the curtain," she said happily. If you look at the picture like I am, I can see Peter's shoes right behind the curtain. I think that Peter is hiding behind the curtain. And so does Mom. I think Mom thinks the same thing. And his toys are all over the place. That might be a good indication that Peter is in that room or that space. She moved the curtain away, but he wasn't there. Peter tricked her. She thought that he was behind the curtain, but Peter was not behind the curtain. "Here I am!" shouted Peter. Where was Peter hiding? I think he was hiding behind the dresser. Peter sat in a grown-up chair. His father sat next to him. "Daddy," said Peter, "let's paint the little chair pink for Susie." And they did. And that was the end of the story. Now, let's talk about how Peter may have changed throughout the story, and let's think about what happened at the beginning, middle, and the end of the story. In the beginning of the story, Peter was very concerned about his sister. He was concerned that all of his things were being taken away and being given to her, like the chair or even the crib. All of those things belonged to Peter. By the time we get into the middle of the story, we notice that Peter decides that he's gonna run away. He doesn't really run away too far, but he was really upset. I think that was a way for him to calm down or cool himself off to some degree. And by the end of the story, we learn that Peter has matured significantly. Peter even decides that he wants to help paint his old chair for his new little sister. That's growing up. That's the lesson that he learned. He learned to grow up and give away things that he wasn't using. And the coolest part of it all was that Peter got a chance to sit in a grown-up chair, a chair that was the perfect size for him. I want to thank you so much for joining me in our reading segment today, and I hope that you'll join us again next week. Thank you again.